Mrs. Aicha Robertson, who is working more on youth and young leader. Aicha Robertson, she is the managing director of One Young World, the Global Forum for Young Leader. She oversees the annual One Young World Summit. She is the co-author of How to Make a Difference. She is active in getting young women involved in politics and was on the Management Today Daily Telegraph list of 35 women in 2019. She was invited to give a keynote speech at the European Commission high-level meeting on domestic violence. I will give her the floor to give her talk on leading with the kindness and intergenerational approach to achieving gender equality. So the floor is yours. You have 15 to 20 minutes to give your talk. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Salam, hello, welcome to all of our great guests today. And thank you very much for inviting me to share with this very, very important association some thoughts on International Women's Day. It's an important day. I think it's very easy each year to become complacent and to say, do we still need to celebrate women? Haven't we achieved gender equality? Well, there are two answers to that. One, clearly we haven't achieved gender equality in any part of the world, whether it's financial emancipation, whether it's to do with violence against women and girls, education, all sorts of areas are just, the gender gap is enormous. And at the rate that we're going, it won't be closed for my great-granddaughters. That is the sorry state of affairs. We're not close to achieving gender equality. Excuse me. And even if we were, I think it's really important to celebrate difference, because men and women may be equal, but we are different. And that's a wonderful thing. And I think that it's really important that we, as the previous session noted, that we welcome men into the women's movement, that we encourage them to play a full role, and that we make sure that the conversations we have, whilst they must be frank and they must address the issues faced, that we are not unnecessarily critical of men for the sake of it. I think it's really important that men feel that they are wanted. And the reality is, if women just keep on preaching to women about gender issues, we won't make any true progress. So I run a charity called One Young World. It's the Global Forum for Young Leaders. And every year we invite thousands of young leaders from every single country in the world, from Vanuatu to the Vatican to Venezuela, to a global summit. And these leaders are from business, from NGOs, from government, from every single sector, as well as being from every single country. And what's been interesting in the 11 years that we've been operating is we've never had to have a gender quota. For some reason, the summit has always fallen down. You know, we might get 48-52 or 49-51, but really has been broadly gender equal. And I can only say that it's just created such strength in our community. So I really recommend, when you're thinking about building a community, whether it's an intimate one or whether it's a large global movement, that you put gender equality at the heart of it. And if that means that you have to occasionally make sure that there are room for women just for the sake of having women, I truly believe it's worth doing that. I don't think any men are so good that we shouldn't make room for women because we need to have those men in the room. I think it's really, really important that we make our invitations to participation in whatever our line of work as wide and as generous as possible. The other advantage of having women is involved in movements is their lived experience. So on some things that will be to do with giving birth to children or menstruation, menopause, issues that are firmly women's issues. But also women just have different experiences when it comes to childcare and to elder care. Women are much more likely to spend their income on their family. Men are more likely to spend their income on themselves. Now, this is data that's been observed widely and broadly around the world. Women do present differently and women do act differently from men. And it's not to say that one is better than the other, but why shouldn't both be represented widely? I think we would all benefit significantly if women were more present in every area of society. We lost last year the late, great Ruth Bader Ginsburg. or Justice Bader Ginsburg. And she said, women belong in every room where decisions are being made. And too often that doesn't happen, particularly because a lot of those decisions are about women. Men are taking decisions about women's right to healthcare, about women's rights to education, without women being part of that discussion. And too often in politics, deals are made on the backs of women. People will say, well, we'll give you this, but then we won't give you the trade on women's health. And women's rights are being traded around the world for the empowerment of men and for the enrichment of men. And I think that that's something important to reflect on. We've worked with so many incredible female activists, and I do think the female voice is incredibly important, incredibly powerful. Sometimes the world fears powerful women. It doesn't know what to do with them. It doesn't know where they belong. So I just wanted to share with you some stories of some female activists who've really inspired me. There's a young woman called Yeonmi Park who fled from North Korea. And when we first met her, she barely spoke English. And her speech that she gave was so screwed up in her hand, she sort of had to stroke it out to try and, by the time she got to give the speech, because she was so nervous. And the speech that she gave about the abuse of women in North Korea, but also of North Korean refugees, went viral several times. And off the back of giving the speech, she got a scholarship to Columbia, she got a book deal, and she's now one of the world's most prominent campaigners for human rights in North Korea. So I really, really recommend watching her speech at One Young World and following her career as it progressed, because I think that that's a country that none of us know much about because of the nature of the regime. And Yeonmi Park is really, really someone who I'm inspired by. I'm also inspired by Amanda Wynn, which is spelled Nguyen. So not necessarily how you would think it would be pronounced, perhaps. But she is a Vietnamese American woman who was tragically raped when she was at university and didn't necessarily want to take certain action immediately, but realized at some point that her rape kit would be destroyed because the police hadn't processed certain information yet. And she was like, I don't want it to be destroyed. What if this person raped someone later and their DNA isn't on file? This isn't right. And she realized there was no Bill of Rights for survivors of rape in the United States. So she drafted a bill, she lobbied for it, and it was the first bill to pass both houses of Congress unanimously in quite some time. And since then, many, many states have passed their own survivors' Bill of Human Rights, of victims' rights. And currently, many of you will be aware, there's a significant amount of abuse being directed towards Asian American women in the United States. And she's heading up the campaign to end that. I just had an International Women's Day meeting with Nimco Ali, OBE, who is the government in the UK's advisor on FGM and violence against women and girls. She herself was a victim of FGM and now campaigns to end it. Coming from a community where women's health issues and women's, and particularly to do with FGM and women's sexuality, are things that just are not discussed and are regarded as taboo. So campaigning on an issue of ending violence against women and girls was very terrifying for her. And it meant she lost a lot of connection within her community. She's also written a book. It's called Things We're Told Not to Talk About, but We're Going to Anyway. And I really, really recommend reading her work. So the reason why I name these three activists is because they all have come through different journeys of being abused because they are women. And the reality is that the abuse that they face is particularly extreme. But this is common in every society, in every culture, for wealthy people, for poor people, and for men as well. Men are often victims of abuse as well. And it's important that we talk about these issues, because if we don't talk about them and name them, we can't fight to end them and we can't seek to understand them. And I think it's just really important that, as uncomfortable as some of these subjects may be, that we raise them and we think about, what am I going to do? I was speaking at the UN Town Hall for survivors and allies at the UN General Assembly in September. And there was a woman who, she just said, what are you doing for girls in Mauritania? And I don't know about you, I wasn't doing anything for girls in Mauritania at that point. And I went, gosh, I could be doing something. I don't live in Mauritania. There's only so much I could do, but I could be doing something. And that's really my message with activism, is that we can all do something. And I don't mean we can just take a personal action. We can personally recycle, or we can personally do something nice. We can all do something that will take other people with us. That's the difference between personal choices and activism. It's who you bring with you into making these choices to create a better and fairer world. And whether it's a small thing or a large thing, we can always take someone with us. And every day we can be activists in our own lives. And particularly, I hope, because it's International Women's Day, for gender equality. So I really would encourage everybody, whether it's girls in Mauritania or women in your own community, what are you doing? And talking isn't enough. We have to go beyond talking. We have to really look at direct action. I'm particularly conscious of this in light of the pandemic, where women have been disproportionately affected financially and career-wise. There's a term in the United Kingdom, and I'm sure elsewhere, of a sandwich carer, of the working mum who's maybe managing to juggle childcare and her career. And now suddenly she's also expected to care for her parents and potentially her husband's elderly parents too. So she's got a double caring load, and the room for her career and her own financial independence is slowly eroded by caring responsibilities. And this again is present in every society and every culture. The burden is falling on women. What can we do to make that fairer? Not to say that women shouldn't play caring roles. Of course they do. And of course many want to and love doing it and are wonderful carers. But so are many men. I've got to say, there are so many compassionate, caring, nurturing men who, because our society is obsessed with masculine strength, aren't able to lean into that side of their role. And we are all deeply, deeply harmed by the sexism that's present in our society. Men aren't able to fulfill roles that they wish to fill. And I think that's a real shame. I think we all lose out to that. So today on International Women's Day, I would just really encourage you to think about what you can do to bring people with you on a journey of gender equality. I don't love it when people say, oh, I'm a feminist because I have daughters and I want my daughters to have the same, opportunities as my sons, because really you should want that. Even if you only had sons, you should still want gender equality, right? But I do think that's how a lot of people come to feminism, is they realize that their children won't be granted opportunities. And just to remind you of the lengths that we have to go to close the gender gap. It won't just be your children who don't have gender equality. It won't be your grandchildren. Your great-grandchildren might not experience gender equality, despite all the efforts that are happening in the world at the moment. That is how slowly we are moving. So this International Women's Day, let us think who we can bring with us, and let us think how we can move faster, because all children deserve to grow up in an equal world. We're all harmed by sexism, and we all want to see a more gender equal world emerge. Thank you for your time today. It's been a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ella, for your talk. As I can say, the advocacy, you are more targeting the different issue related to the policy and how women can be introduced at different level, especially when it comes to the policy, to design policy for women and women for policies. So it's very important also to see that women can act differently from the male. Female is different from the male, and we have also to protect women, girls against any different what I can say, violence. The community-based knowledge is very important also to develop in our world and to have equal world for men and women. So thank you for your very important talk about the real problem that are in some society we cannot are hidden. So we have it's the time to have the strong advocacy to involve the girls and women to speak about themselves and to design special policy for them and for their well-being. And the well-being of women is a huge part to have a solid community and society.
For me, education is the key for my future.